world, but we really need to remember that behind that digital world are real human beings. And that's what we're talking about today in today's BizBuzz. It's all about adding the human touch to digital marketing. I'm Natasha Mitchell from Inspire and Drive, and I'm here with my host, Lee Mitchell from Women in Biz Network. Hi, Lee. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
That's great. I'm good. I'm good. We're going to have a short and informative conversation today. It's all really about providing human touch to digital marketing. That's so easy for us to lose sight of when we get involved in all of that tech. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So last week I had the honor and privilege of being a host at a marketing event called DigiMarcon, and I was in the room with some of the top marketing experts in Canada and also from the US, both in terms of attendees and speakers, and some great conversation, amazing presentations. And I just wanted to share three of the top takeaways that I had from the time together and the presentations that were being shared. There were some similar trends that are emerging, but it's really interesting to see how the digital trends are actually being shared or applied in reality. So that's what I want to share a little bit about today for some of our listeners who might be wondering, what are the trends? So the first trend was all around personal connection. And I think the fact that we were just in a room with real life people for the first time was a really wonderful opportunity, and definitely I realized how differently you interact with people when you are personally in a room together. You know, you've run many large events in the past. Wouldn't you agree that the energy and the networking that can happen in those live events is just so powerful?
Yeah, absolutely. I really do miss in-person events. Now that the world is reopening, I'm just finding that I get so much out of the energy of being with other people that you connect with. The digital space is great, and at least now, instead of just having a phone call, we're having video calls, and that's becoming quite common, and everyone's getting used to it. We're all mastering the technology, other than remembering to unmute yourself. But yeah, there's just absolutely nothing that can replace building those strong relationships and fostering them through in-person networking, and just seeing, where you connect with people. Sometimes when we talk over the social media with people, we get certain impressions, but then, our whole how we perceive things can change when we meet people in person. So, I think it's like almost like online dating. You don't want to keep it online for too long. Eventually you need to know that it's a real connection. You kind of have to bring it into the real world. So I think it applies.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think we're definitely going to be, I think the trend is this, that we definitely know that we have a really hybrid environment. My observation is people were a little sensitive and a little shy at first. Certainly the conference really was respecting all of the pandemic restrictions and COVID protocols and all of those things, which was great. But, people had sort of lost the art a little bit of that personal connection. And I think having that will really help those in the marketing space to start translating that a little bit more to the online world as well. So I agree, the personal connection, nothing like it. For me, being an extroverted, just drawing on the energy from everyone in the room was amazing. And, the last point that I'll make about it, which is, I think, very relevant to the sort of digital marketing space, is that most of the conversation was just very social. You could really tell it wasn't about business or work or strategies. People just, happy to share a lot of personal stuff, how they were feeling, how they survived and thrived during the pandemic. You know, we were talking about books we were reading and things we were watching on TV and streaming. So just really great conversation. You could tell really people were dying to have that conversation and just be around people that had been outside of their COVID bubble, perhaps, you know, and have some fresh ideas. So for me, that was really interesting and refreshing as well.
I love that. And what was your experience like being the MC? I know that's a huge undertaking, and you know, doing that in person again must have felt, you know, like a bit of a jump for you, just in terms of what you've had to do in the last few years, right? Like, we haven't had those opportunities. So how did you deal with that?
Yeah, well, it was a little, you know, I've got to confess, I'm a comfortable speaker, but I was a little nervous getting up on the stage. It's like, do I still remember how to do this? But you know, the minute that I was up there and engaging with everyone, you know, I just really kept it. Was a fairly, you know, about 100 people the first day, I guess, and about 50 people the second day. So there was a real opportunity to connect people at a personal level. But I love being on stage. I love speaking, and really the energy that I received from everyone was so positive, and people were very engaged in both listening and participating. So, you know, it's just a great opportunity to get out of there again. I had so much fun, and I look forward to more opportunities to do that in the future.
Well, I saw some great photos of you. You look like you were really owning the stage. So good for you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it was nice to do my hair and put on a nice outfit and go out in person again. So it was it was creatively inspiring. And so, Lee, the second thing, you know, which is all tied, ultimately, this is all tied to personal connection in terms of what I was seeing with some of the big trends. The second big trend that came up through a lot of the presentations was the use of video and storytelling in all of the marketing. And it was just, you know, I don't think that will come as any surprise to people. We know that video content is very powerful in a marketing and online space. But I really just think the way people are using video, not only video, but sort of this interactive storytelling was very innovative. And, you know, just things like one of the presenters, their client was L'Oreal, and so they were really showing how L'Oreal had, for example, taken traditional product sales and really made it into an experiential video-based, interactive-based solution, doing things like, you know, it wasn't just about like, here's a red lipstick, go ahead and try that. When we are not able to go into a store, the ability to experience that becomes so different. So they were really using some interesting technology around the storytelling, and it wasn't just lipstick, it was about skincare products and things like that was the example, where they, for example, used influencers who they gave them the product for 30 days, and the influencers shared their story and experiences via video. So that was one way that they used video in an interesting way that was very much storytelling. The other kind of tools that they were using in that campaign were things like quizzes and questions so that people could analyze their skin type. You know, they were doing things like having, you know, different skin types there, and you could roll over the skin type that you've most identified with, and it would pick the fixed shade. So this is what I mean about video and storytelling, really giving people an opportunity to see products and services in action. I think that was a big part of the storytelling.
So that customization, I know when the world shut down and I could no longer color my hair, and I decided getting gray, it was time to go blonde. So I actually went on to one of the sites where you could see your hair in different colors. And then I was able to match it to the last time I was blonde. And I'm like, okay, I know what to do. And like, I feel like, you know, it's been much easier maintaining my hair color now that I'm getting older and it gets gray so fast. I just don't like, I've lost that interest in going to the stylist every 6 weeks to do my hair. I guess that's one of the things that changed for me personally through the pandemic. And because of that personalization in terms of like helping me figure it out without having to even go into the store was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean that was just huge, and I think along with a couple of pieces about that. The first thing was just in terms of thinking about how you're searching for content. People aren't searching for, give me the L'Oreal hair dye number 20, blonde. That's not what they're searching for. What people are searching for is exactly what you said, Lee. How do I color my hair at home?
Yeah.
So it was really thinking about it from a couple perspectives. One is, the personalization of the experience, but also really thinking about what are people really searching for? How do we speak in our clients' language? So that was a really great example. And the other side of that, which you sort of raised, and I think this was a trend going throughout everything, as something I spoke about in one of my presentations as well, is that there's a real shift to more of this ethical and sustainable consumerism as general. Our demographic and our sociographic sort of trends have shifted, where before it was like heavy consumerism, a lot of waste, buying the latest things and throwing it out, going to the salon every week. There's been a real shift to really focus more on, how can we reduce waste? How can we be more sustainable? How can we work with companies that value diversity and inclusion, that offer fair wages, that are treating their employees well? Like some of those trends were beginning to emerge throughout all of this storytelling as well.
Yeah, and I love that you talked about diversity and inclusion there, because I'm taking a course right now where we're looking at the innovation in diversity and inclusion and the lack thereof, right? So when you go to like when you were talking about matching, right? Are they thinking about people with darker skin and like, all of the different tones of a Black person or a person of color, like making sure that we have those things, as well as, just little things like, are we solving the right problem, in terms of just some of what, for example, if you're in construction and you need construction boots, or a uniform, we're looking at things where, because it's traditionally a male dominated industries, they don't have the right sizes and fits for women. They don't prototype it on our bodies, right? On women's bodies. So, inclusive design in that whole personalization of marketing is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that that's a great example of showing where the market isn't serving, doesn't support some of those diversity and inclusion, and also where there's opportunities in the market. So, really this personalization, customization was really driving also a lot more innovation, and a lot of different companies coming into the marketplace to do all sorts of things. One, to support the marketing and the technology that you need to do some of this marketing, but also just the products and services that are being provided. And, that's a great segue into the last trend that I just want to talk about today. A big trend I felt going throughout the few days was really about customer experience. Sort of along with the personalization is very much customer experience. And it was all about helping make it easier for people to get what they want. One of the things that has been traditionally in place in online marketing, we've all seen it, is, here's my product or service, enter a form and, get on a list, get 17 different emails, or, get on the website, schedule a call with a sales agent where you're going to get just sold, instead of helping people get to the solution they want and make some of those decisions earlier on. So a really great presentation that was presented there was showing how to use some of the technology and just some of the different words that you can put on a call to action button instead of get on a call with a sales agent, which nobody wants to do, really.
Yeah,
and
good point.
if you're just exploring and testing the waters, you don't want to be on a call with a sales agent that's giving you a hard sell. You want to find out more about the product. You want to find out more about the company. You want to see it in action. So, a simple shift on one of the call to action buttons for more of like a software company was view a product demo now. And, instead of like get on a call with a sales agent, view a demo now took a consumer to a page where there were multiple different videos of things that they could do. Like that was one example. The other example was things like instead of, again, not to say that forms and opt-in forms are obsolete or downloads are obsolete, it's just getting harder to attract people's attention to do those things. So sort of you need that pattern interrupt. Another example was highlighted that it takes about 11 touch points for people to make a purchasing decision. Those 11 touch points need to be easy for the consumer. So it was, like view a demo, maybe there's a quiz. It's like, what are you ready to buy? What's your biggest challenge? And you say, I don't know, I'm making up, like recruiting, payroll, performance improvement, performance reviews. Then you would be taken to the right video. So really taking people down a customer path in that way. And as you're going along that journey, asking the question then is like, if you're ready to speak to one of our sales reps, click here now. So you can still ask that, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the first thing up front. And really then customizing that journey through interesting technology, video again, storytelling, and helping people get through that whole customer journey a little more easily and comfortably. So for me, that was really exciting.
I love it. And it's so important. Yeah. Because we need to date before we get married. So it's like, let's just, let's warm up that connection first before we try to go for the sale. So what did you present on? You mentioned that you were also presenting at the conference.
Yeah, thank you. So my presentation, I'm more on the business side than the full-out marketing side. So being asked to present to a group of marketing experts, I wanted to make sure it was value add for them. It tied in very well, I think, to the technical and tactical marketing session solutions that were there. I really wanted to look behind those trends of what's driving it. And I've talked a little bit about it today, just sort of saying that there are people behind everything we do. So it doesn't matter how fancy the tactics are. We really need to think about the people behind that. And I really spoke to the fact that some of the things that are really driving these trends are exactly some of the things we've touched on, the social impact of where we are now, just in terms of we can't go out as easily, we can't travel as easily. Our values, I think, as a society are definitely changing. We are losing our faith in some of the information that we see online. And so we're looking for more trusted networks. So that was sort of one of the big trend areas that I spoke to as driving the tactics. The other piece I really touched on was very much this customer experience and why we need to make it easier for customers to interact with us. And the final piece, sort of the trend behind the trends, if you will, is really about this ethical behavior and what consumers are looking for in terms of, again, companies that are ethically aligned here. And again, the climate change and sustainability are big drivers behind what's happening on the front end of marketing and the front end of services, and really just kind of combining all of those things together and thinking about what is going on in people's mind when they're making a purchasing decision, and what problems are they trying to solve for in this world that we're living in right now.
Yeah, I love it. And, I remember before we talked about SMART goals, and I remember one thing you said to me that really stood out, and it's something they should add to that acronym is, what tools or resources or people do you need to implement that SMART strategy? So, having those deep dive questions and really thinking it through so that you're not making assumptions or necessarily going down a path that you could do it much faster and better if you have the right tools and people and everything at your disposal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, some great conversation. Again, brilliant minds in the room, which is a great place to spark innovation and creativity and just start to think about things differently. Just to see some of the advancements in technology over the last few years, you realize, and a lot of the marketing agencies there and marketing people were more sort of corporate level, but there's so many opportunities for small businesses to take elements of this and start applying this in their own business. It doesn't have to cost a fortune to do it.
Right.
It doesn't need any, obviously if you're doing a L'Oreal style campaign, you do need some technology, but you don't need high tech to do it on a smaller scale. Keeping the consumer in mind. It's not about, I want to sell this product. It's about, what problem am I solving? Like, who am I selling this to at the end of the day? Oh, I'm selling that to Leah. I'm selling that to Natasha. What are Leah and Natasha doing, or anyone in our audience doing in their day-to-day lives? What are they searching for? How is this going to make their life better? That's a big part of it. So I think there's plenty of opportunity for small business owners to interact. I mean, without going deep on it, one of the big discussions obviously was data privacy, and getting access to third-party data is becoming more difficult and more expensive. So people need to get creative. The storytelling definitely helps with that, getting people into a community, lots of value add for consumers at every point, making sure that it's a seamless, easy, trusted, repeatable relationship is also a whole other dimension of this sort of digital marketing space. But for me, it was just really, it's fundamentals. There's a person at the end of every transaction, and you're in business to solve problems for people. So how do you connect that to those two together? How do you tell that story in a compelling way? How do you stand out a little bit from the crowd and get people into your community in potentially a more organic and sustainable way?
I think that's so important. And so what were the big takeaways, that action items that you felt people probably were going to make? Like, were there any sort of really strong like buzz going on about what people would do with the knowledge that they gained from the conference?
Yeah, I mean, I think the really big one was the personal connection and that storytelling piece. I think that for me, that was the big emerging trend that people were sort of talking about. Again, a lot of their marketing people in the room worked for bigger corporations. So, one of the wrap-up conversations we had was really about, how do you take that message back to your corporate leadership and get them to think about marketing more than just, a bottom line number? How do we infuse sort of that marketing across the whole, everything we do, basically? Because it's not just about marketing and sales. It's the brand of the organization. It's about how you show up in the world. Really, the the experts in the room really thinking about how do they get their own leadership and or client leadership on board to become more of the face of the organizations. You know, we've moved away from very like like 6 degrees of separation to 1 degree of separation. People want to see the leaders of corporations and companies, their faces on screen, right? This is the whole video and storytelling. So they want to see more of that. So for me, I think that was the big kind of buzz around how do we get maybe more of this personalization on board? How do we engage leadership across all levels to be more involved with the brand? And not only leadership, you know, even the teams, even the old individual team members, how do you make everyone in an organization like part of this social media and branding? And you know, again, that was obviously a long discussion. People don't either know how to, they're nervous about doing it in case they say the wrong things and the repercussion about that. So you know, I think the personal connection, the storytelling are infusing a lot of what we're doing, and changing the way not only small businesses interact, but large businesses interact with their customer base, because that's what the consumers are expecting now. And again, you know, when we look at the trend behind the trend, the demographics and sociographics, you know, consumers are looking for a different thing. They don't just want a white paper. They want to hear the CEO of, you know, RBC speaking, or on video, or, you know, members of, you know, employees of, I don't know, XYZ company talking about how here's my here's my onboarding experience. Here's what it's like to work at, you know, Be Happy HR. Here's what it's like to work at TELUS or Scotiabank or whatever, you know. So there's a much more personalization, I think, around the brand. And there was definitely a lot of discussion around that.
So it sounds like video is going to be an important part of marketing mix, whether it be your personal brand and storytelling, or whether it be corporate onboarding, as you mentioned. So were there any tips around that? Like, because obviously video production can be expensive, but you know, there's always, you know, different ways to look at that. Like, you know, just sometimes like a simple video can be very authentic.
Yeah, for sure.
Was much mentioned about how
yeah, well, our good friend, your
that?
friend of mine, Andrew Jenkins, was speaking. He was talking about War on Attention, which was really largely around the content piece. So definitely video is a big part of that. Depending on your brand and who you are, you know, you may have a higher production value or lower production value, but you know, Andrew, sort of coming from that background of film editing, you know, was really saying like so much functionality just on your cell phone now that we never had before, that people respond quite well to more of those organic, authentic, I'm going to say underproduced videos. I mean, even like this, like a casual conversation like this is very powerful. So it's less about the production value. Obviously, you know, if you're on television or on, you know, I don't know, you know, the big screen, the production quality of that is going to be a bit different. But, you know, definitely don't shy away from video if you don't have, you know, the big expensive equipment. It's more about, you know, the message that you're sharing, how you're sharing that. That's really important. And the other big takeaway that, you know, Andrew and I have chatted on our podcast about this in the past as well, but it's repurposing that. So it's not just everything just becomes video. It's about, you know, how do you turn that video into a blog? How do you turn that video into a social media post? How do you cut it up into a WAV file? How do you use it on, you know, thinking about different platforms that utilize video, like on your Instagram and TikToks, you know, that's where you might use it as part of the overall strategy, or as part of what I've talked about, sort of that customer experience. So definitely no need to do like a big overproduced, you know, all bells and whistles. Casual, more authentic connections are important. with a level of professionalism, obviously, depending on what your brand is. I mean, if you're very irreverent and crazy, well, that's how you're going to show up, right? So it's that authentic connection, and using that video as part of the overall strategy. And again, I'm not a marketing expert, but just taking away from what the experts were sharing, some of the search engines on Google, etc., don't always rank video like the content of video. They're looking for sort of text-based things, so doing things like transcribing your video and tools like Descript to transcribe the video, and then using that as well and putting more words or captions and things like that. So I mean, they were some of the bigger takeaways in terms of how to produce the video and how to use it in the strategy. And I think we need to just remember that, generally it's not all or nothing. It's part of a strategy, and it's part about how do you start that conversation? How do you make it more personal? How do you make it easier for people to interact with you?
Yeah, I like that. And did they mention anything about audio networking and podcasting and things like that? Because obviously that's a big trend and slightly easier than worrying about what you look like.
Yeah, same kind of general consensus, I guess, is about, Andrew talks a lot about consistency. So if you're going to do podcasting, either batch it together, it's not about, obviously you want quite good audio quality when you're doing a podcast, but it doesn't have to be a sound studio quality. It just needs to be clear. I think the biggest takeaway is, choose the platforms that you're most comfortable or excited about. Use that as your foundation. If you're going to start a podcast, then maybe consider doing a video podcast to give you a little bit extra juice on the video. So you've got the audio and the video component then. You can then use that as a marketing tool. But one of the things Andrew often talks about is the consistency, and we all know how algorithms work and things work. So for something like a podcast, batching your content up front so that you can release it on a regular schedule, once a week or once a month or whatever that is. But with anything, and same with YouTube as well, like, and YouTube's probably a bit more forgiving than an Instagram or a TikTok, where the algorithm's really looking for you to feed it on a daily basis and in many different various forms, in stories and reels and posts. The key is like consistency, letting people know, when you show up. And I mean, Lee, it's like having that consistent branding across everything. So people are having a similar experience every time they're interacting with you.
Yeah, and actually one thing that's coming on LinkedIn is similar to Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces, is there'll be like a LinkedIn audio networking opportunity as well. So I think that's also something that people are really exploring, is it's just doing like audio networking where, you're being live streamed and you enter into conversations, and it's simple to go in and go out, and you don't have to worry about what you look like or, that sort of thing. So that's kind of an interesting trend that seems to be continuing as well. But thanks so much for all your insights, and congratulations on a successful MC of the MarCon conference. I'm really proud of you and excited that this is, something that hopefully you'll continue to be involved in. So well done.
Well, thank you, Lee. I appreciate that. And I'm happy to be able to share some of the insights from such an amazing conference with our audience. So thanks for joining us. We'll be back again next week with, just want to mention that we are doing both business biz buzz and more career and career transition buzz. So you're going to see a bit of a blend of that over the coming weeks, and just sharing more knowledge for wherever people are at. So thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you all again soon.